You need to know what to do with that dough. Let the chef show you. You need to know what to do with that dough.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Need to Know Pod with your girl, Chef Sahera. And today is episode 2 of our series, Building Your Baking Business from Scratch. Today we are focusing on the legal and licensing essentials of building your business. So before we get into it, get your coffee. I got mine. I got my coffee. So if you're ready to know what it takes to run your business legally to save you some headaches, let's get into it. So one of the first things you want to think about is the type of structure you want your business to be. So as I give you this information, I'll give you some of what I went through in my process. When I first started, I started as a sole proprietor. When I did my big event, if you've listened to any of the other episodes that I've done, you know I had a big event that I did at the Javits Center here in New York City. Once I made that decision to do that huge event, I knew that I wanted to be able to just be organized. So I wanted to be official. I started my business right then and there legally. First, let's talk about the business structure. So you want to determine if you're going to have a sole proprietorship or an LLC, and sometimes maybe an S Corp. I'm more familiar with a sole proprietorship, an LLC. I'll give you information about what I've gone through. So I'm not too versed on S Corps, but I do know about sole proprietorships and the LLCs. Of course, you know the limit LLC stands for, is an acronym for Limited Liability Corporation. When you have a sole proprietorship, it's still tied to your personal assets. An LLC is a separate entity. So I switched from a sole proprietorship to an LLC once I opened up my brick and mortar. When I initially decided to come up with a business name and a structure was when I did this huge event. So I was just still selling. I just created the business. At that point, I was not thinking about opening a brick and mortar. A lot of businesses start out as a sole proprietorship. This is what I started out as because I wanted to be more organized when I participated in this huge event. So I wanted an EIN number, employee identification number. So I had somebody pay, and I claimed my business as a DBA, doing business as. A DBA is doing business as. That's what I did. That's what I did. So you look into it. I'm not giving you legal advice or anything like that. I can only tell you what I did. I had a tax ID under my business name, and I operated as such. So you definitely want to figure out the structure that you're going to have. Once I decided to open my business, like I stated, I had an LLC. Now it's more risk associated. So now, as I'll get into, now I needed different licensing. Just the reality is, I know a lot of people bake at home and sell their products without creating a business. That is fine. That is fine. If that's what you choose to do. I knew that I wanted to be able to track my expenses and be more organized, because a lot of times what happens is you want this business and it's just all mixed into everything. Let me pick up a 50-pound bag of flour while I'm still shopping for my family. So this made it easier for me to separate the two, my personal from my business, because now I'm serious about having this business. So that's what I did. I went from sole proprietorship, operated a DBA under the sole proprietorship for roughly maybe 5 years or so. So each year I claimed taxes under that with that DBA, as well as, and once I opened up my shop, I had an LLC. And just to be clear, the name was slightly different. So it wasn't, in essence, it was like a new business. But it still had the same name. So Pastry Lover's Choice, my LLC name was Pastry Lover's Choice Cafe. But everybody just saw Pastry Lover's Choice. So just know that when you start as a sole proprietorship, it's the simplest form, the easiest way to set up. It's not a lot required. When you start an LLC, you have to register. You definitely have to register with the state. An LLC gives you an extra layer of protection. And I think it's good to have an LLC if you plan on scaling your business, or especially if you plan on selling to the public and if this is something that you're taking serious. So now we get into the licensing and the permits. So regardless of where you are, technically you should, if you're going to be selling to the public, you need to get certain licensing and permits. There are some states, so you definitely want to check with the health department that allow you to sell baked goods from your home. Really quickly, the way I got started into really just exploring having a business way before I went to culinary school, I used to sell food. I always had a love of food and everything culinary. So, they had festivals in the area. That's when I first was introduced to food safety. In order for me to participate in his festival, I had to get a food handler's license. With that food handler's license, I learned that I could sell certain products from my home, and I could sell to some stores, but it was limited. I can't remember exactly what I could and couldn't sell, but I knew that I was able to, just by having this food handler's license here in the state of New York, that it allowed me to participate in festivals. And so again, if you're looking to sell food in your home or open up a business, you want to check with your health department because they usually are the ones in charge of the food permits because different states have different rules. Some areas have cottage food laws. I actually had never heard of that. Once my shop was closed and I started conducting business online and I started meeting all these bakers, they actually told me about these cottage food laws that I really didn't even know existed. Again, I know people sell in their house and just figure I'm selling and just want to do it for some extra cash on the side. But if your desire is to have a baking business or any business, you're definitely going to need some kind of licensing. Cottage food laws allows you to sell certain items, but again, there's certain things you can and can't sell. To give you an example, California is very strict with their rules. I did have a client who lived in California and she sold red velvet cake, but her icing couldn't have the cream cheese. I guess if she was doing like a farmer's market, she couldn't sell the red velvet cake with the icing, the cream cheese frosting, because cream cheese is dairy. And then if you recall, that could be considered it is a TCS food, time and temperature control for safety. So maybe they didn't want her to sell this product that could potentially cause somebody to get sick because of that cream cheese in it. So she was selling from her home, but that was something that she could not do. She could not sell cream cheese frosting. She couldn't put that on her cake. So I forget the name that she said. If I go way back to some of my recordings, I could figure out the name that she said they called it. She made some kind of icing, just real basic icing, but that's what she had to do. She couldn't use the cream cheese frosting. So definitely, again, check with your local authorities on what you need if you want to be just a home, if you just want to sell baked goods from your home. So just in case, again, people like to sue. So just to protect yourself. So make sure you have all the licensing that you need. If you know people that are selling from home in your area, maybe you want to ask them, confer with them to see if they can give you some insight on what it is that you need to do. Again, each state is different. They have a different set of laws. So I would definitely recommend that because what I know for sure is it's a lot easier to get advice from people, or it makes the process easier when someone has done it and you can go and get some advice for someone who has done it or is doing it. But to start from scratch all by yourself is it's a huge learning curve. It's definitely a huge learning curve. So of course, you got to name your business. You want to make sure you name your business. I would even say before you even you can think of the structure, but even just naming your business, you want to make sure nobody has that name of your business. That's number one. And you want your name to kind of represent what it is that you do. So once you think of the name, then you go register your business. You get that DBA, you get that LLC, because clearly you need to have the name before. I would also say once you come up with the name, I would just look into, run it and do an online search to see if anyone in your state has that name. If they don't have the name, go ahead and grab that name. But I also would suggest that you secure that domain name. So once you think about scaling your business or however you want to operate, you don't want another business to have that same name. You don't want someone to be able to get that domain name Let's say we call it Sally's Sweet Treats.com. If you don't claim SallySweetTreats.com, someone else can claim it. And it could be something that does not even represent you or your business. So you just want to claim that name. And just because you claim a domain name doesn't necessarily mean that you have to have a website. What it means is that and domains are really, really inexpensive. But once you claim that domain name, nobody else can use it. Nobody else can use it. They can claim SallySweetTreats.net or .org. So I tell my clients I would get the most popular .com and maybe .net. So nobody else can use it. So that's just something to think about. Once you've come up with the name, you want to register that with your state, especially if you're not doing business under your name. So for me, I didn't use my name to run my business. That's when you set up a DBA, doing business as. So you can be a sole proprietor, but you're doing business not under your government name, but under your business name. So also with the LLC, you want to definitely register your business. Register with the state. It makes it official, and nobody else in the state can do business under that name. So that's the importance of that. So the one thing I'll say is when you are looking to open up a brick and mortar, maybe not so much baking from home, but what you would want to do is certain places require you to have insurance. With my brick and mortar, I had general liability, but there's different levels of insurance that you need. If you have employees here in the state of New York, you're going to need workers' comp insurance, disability insurance. So those are some of the things that you have to think about. But general liability protects you and protects you from being sued in terms of they will come out after your business, but not your personal assets. People will try to sue you. But if you have general liability, if somebody comes and slips and fall, you can run that through their insurance as opposed to suing you directly. So that was something that I needed. Or if someone says they got sick from eating your food. So look to see what your state requires. I would say look to see what your state requires if you're doing it in a house. But general liability insurance and product liability insurance, these cover you in case of accidents, allergic reactions, or other unexpected issues. So general liability covers you for, if somebody eats your food and say they got sick, or if someone falls, as well as any unexpected issues. Here in New York, when it snows, you need to make sure you shovel the front of your establishment. If someone slips and falls on that ice, you're responsible. So you want to make sure you have that insurance. The licensing that it took to open up, I had to show certain insurance. I had to show that I had workers' comp insurance. I had to show that I had a disability insurance. But that's for another conversation. But so just keep in mind. But general liability is something you might want to look into, especially if you plan on serving the public. Insurance needs depend on your location and the kind of setup that you're going to have. So reach out to local insurance agents to see what kind of insurance you will need. Here in New York City, we have a shopping outlet, Empire Outlets. In order for me to sell at the Empire Outlets here in New York, I had to show my insurance. That's why I think it's important to establish your business. So when you want to do events, some people don't want the local baker. Some people want to know that they're doing business with legitimate businesses. One of my business coaches, in order to do business with her, she told me she only works with LLCs. So that was interesting. So just keep that in mind. Some people want to do business with legitimate business owners, as opposed to nothing wrong with baking from home, but it also protects them as well. So just keep that in mind. Okay, so now let's talk about just in terms of, and this is just a quick overview of how one thing I knew for sure was when I was doing this event, I wanted to be able to track my expenses. How do I do that? By monitoring what you spend, monitoring how much you sell. So what I did was, once you register your business, you're able to get a business account. I highly recommend people get a business account and also get some kind of accounting software. That allows you, it makes it so much easier to track what you're selling. You can link those debit cards together. If you are not registered with the state, you cannot open up a business banking account. So I highly recommend that you do that. And it makes it so much easier. So come tax time, you can look at it's automated. So it does the work for you. You go to that accounting software that's inexpensive. I know they have stuff like QuickBooks or NetSuite. So you choose what works for you. I actually use QuickBooks, and I'm telling you, you can send invoices through it. So these are the things to think about. I actually have a list of just different things that you need when you're starting a business. One thing I did, and I'm sure it's different now, but now people take Cash App and stuff like that. But now, even with Cash App and they are requiring you, like, over a certain amount, they want you to claim that income. So how do you do that? How do you keep track of all of that? When we did this event, the event was so crowded for 2 days. I started with Square. I don't know if people still use Square, but it allowed me to set up everything I was going to sell. It was so easy. As people were paying, it went right into the bank account at the end of the day. So I was able to see what I made as opposed to trying to guess. I sold 10 cupcakes, but that's what you call a POS system. Square was a POS system. And I guess people still use it. I'm sure there's so many more out there nowadays, but that's what I used way back when, the Square POS system. Now, actually, that was my register at the shop. That was my register at the shop, come to think of it. So, and when it's time to do the taxes, QuickBooks, I will tell you, integrates with, it allows your accountant to be able to look into it. I actually have an accounting background. So even though I would use an accountant, I also would do most of the work. So they wouldn't have to do as much. I will say when you have an LLC, it's a little more expensive to do your books. But I'm not here as an accountant or to give any kind of legal or accounting advice or anything like that. But I will just recommend that you get some kind of accounting software. So I will say also, lastly, sometimes you may need I told you that I needed a food handler's license. You may need some kind of license, food handler's license. I know that the National Restaurant Association has the ServSafe certificate for food handlers. So if you're going to be handling food, if you don't plan on doing the baking or the cooking, get the person who will be doing it. If you're going to have like a brick and mortar, I highly recommend somebody get some kind of certification behind food safety. Here in New York City, somebody has to be on duty with the food handler's license or certificate at all times. That's a violation. That is a violation. So if you are new to baking or cooking and you still want to have this business, do yourself a favor, educate yourself on food safety so you don't make anyone sick. I highly, highly recommend that. You can actually just go in and look to see what your state requires. Here in New York City, you are required at least one person. I feel like everybody should be required. In the state of California, if you have a food business, all of your employees have to have a food handler's license. They have to have a food handler's license. That I know for sure. So just check again your local authorities and what your state requires to see. But I highly recommend you get some kind of certification. You may think you know what food safety is, but I highly suggest that you look into getting some kind of certificate to really educate yourself on food safety. So before we go, let's look at our question that was submitted to us at needtoknowpod.com. So we have a question from a Rebecca S. So she says, "Hi, Chef Sahera. I'm just starting out selling cookies and brownies at a local farmer's market. Do I need a special permit for that?" So that's a good question, Rebecca. And we just kind of covered that. So when you do these special events, you definitely want to check to see what is required. Like I said, I was just selling food when oh my goodness, this had to be, I think that was like in 2001 when I did that first event. And I needed a food handler's license. So what, I knew how to cook. If you want to cook here, you're gonna have some training. And I had to take a food handler's license that was 15 hours. I went every day after work, 3 hours a day. That was in person. So now it's online, but you still have to go in person here in New York to take the test. But that was required. When I set up my business in the outlet, I needed that license to my general insurance, general liability insurance. I had to show that. But again, check if you're selling from your home, check to see what laws are required, check your cottage food laws, see what you can and cannot sell. Again, my client couldn't sell the red velvet cupcake with the cream cheese frosting. So I do remember, I felt like they said I could sell like maybe cookies and cakes, maybe cakes without icing here in New York. But it did allow me to sell to businesses. It allowed me to sell to businesses. And this was way back when I didn't even have a business registered with the state. I was just cooking. And maybe I knew how to bake one or two things. So that's that. But great question. So that's it, guys. So as we come to a close of this episode, just to wrap up, let's go over what we have covered today. And we covered that you will definitely want to decide on your business structure, as well as getting those licenses and permits. Sometimes you just may need a sales tax permit. You definitely need that. When I opened my business, you definitely had to have a sales permit, sales tax permit. So that is definitely something you have to go through your state with, or you can get someone to do that for you. They have services that do this for you. You can have like a legal Zoom, or there's so many different people that can provide that service. What I will say is that you pay more, obviously, for them to perform that service. I paid for my LLC to get done, but my LLC for my second business, I did by myself. And like you save so much money doing it yourself. So that's just something to look into. But you can do it online. You can go to IRS and get your EIN number. You can register with your state. So, or you can pay somebody to do it for you. So also, we covered the insurance that you would need. And just a really quick overview of just trying to keep your books in order in terms of having some kind of accounting software. You definitely want to look into setting up a bank account, but you can't set up that bank account, a business banking account, without registering your business. So in the next episode, we will discuss the different tools, the must-have tools you have, and some resources on how to buy in bulk. You will, once you want to have this business, I highly recommend that you stop buying at the local market. You start figuring out ways to save money in your business. Start figuring out ways to save money in your business. So thanks for joining me on this episode of Need to Know Pod. Don't forget, if you have a baking question, please submit those baking questions to needtoknowpod@gmail.com, or you can send me a DM on Chef Sahera Speaks on all my social platforms as well. Be sure to follow us, share this podcast. Also, be sure to leave us a review. Leave us a review. Tell us what you liked about Need to Know Pod. Tell people about Need to Know Pod with me, Chef Sahera. And as always, guys, thanks for listening. I'll catch you in the next episode.
You need to know what to do with that dough. Let the chef show you. You need to know what to do with that dough. Let the chef show you.